with other people. You can observe how they deal with a piece of criticism. You can observe how they engage in conversations. That's behavior. But attitude is the filter through which that behavior gets portrayed. See? Remember the conversation about filter? So to me, these three are sort of totally linked together. And my personal view is, I have to say I disagree with your HR person completely, because I think it's making it too black and white, and it's making it too, this is what matters and this is not what matters. It's just like saying, you know, in your body, your heart is the only thing that matters. You know, your lungs don't matter, your brains don't matter, it's your heart that's pumping the blood through your system. Well, it's all interconnected. If the world was so easy that we could say, oh, it's only your behavior. But the reason that a lot of people focus on behavior is because it's observable and it's measurable. So I can say, you know, so-and-so interrupts people all the time. That's behavior. But it's linked to their attitude. If I'm dismissive of other people, I'm going to interrupt them. Dismissiveness is attitude. Interruption is behavior. Does that make sense? Do you see the relationship now between them? So I actually think this is the way I would describe it. Attitude is much harder to measure. How do you measure it? It's sort of perceived. So that's why a lot of people like to go for the behavior and not the attitude.
I agree with you, but sometimes if you talk about attitude, you're making a judgment on the person. It's very personal.
Yes.
And so if you can say, I observe these behaviors instead of, you know, I'm judging your attitude, it's sometimes easier to get through to the person.
Yeah, and I think that's why HR people basically do that, but I think to say that that's the only thing that matters, that's not correct, because behavior is the most observable and the most measurable. Now this afternoon when you get together with Dan, our faculty member who's going to focus on coaching, he'll tell you, when you're coaching, focus on things that are observable. Because if I'm judging you, to Linda's point, how can I prove that? There's no facts, it's just my perception.
That's where the problem actually comes about, but the behaviors are difficult to correct unless the attitude is correct. That's the problem that I face.
And that's why in coaching, you need to ask lots of questions, so you're peeling back the layer of the onion, so you can get to that rock bottom attitudinal dimension. And that's why, quite frankly, you can't coach anyone unless they want to be coached. So that's an attitudinal factor as well.
I also think the word attitude is very charged. I mean, as children, your parents would say, I don't like that attitude.
Yeah.
And so when you use that as an adult, I've discovered people get very defensive.
That's a good point.
You know, so it's almost, you have to have whatever is a euphemism for attitude has to be substituted in there, because people don't seem to want to address it as that being it.
Yes, and I think there's another word that's coming in. I like it better than attitude, to your point about, I like the word mindset better than attitude, because I think to me mindset, as you said, is less charged. And also it is, a lot of very interesting research has been done on people's mindsets, which is really a sort of a more expanded version of attitude. So your mindset is either fixed or it's growth oriented. You're either like a sponge, you learn and you grow and you move into your stretch zone, or you're more fixed and you say, hey look, this is it, and you don't expand. So I like mindset better than attitude, personally. But I think you ask a very good question, yes.
Just to make an observation, I mean, I think anybody who's played sports, high school football, or you talk about coaching, high school football coaches love the adage, the only thing you can control is your attitude and your effort. And that will manifest in a particular way. So when you look at your triangle there, it seems to me if you believe the sports adages, it would be rotated counterclockwise, and that behavior is really a manifestation of of your attitude and your effort or values. Value and effort are the same thing.
I think that's a great point, and I like the word effort because effort is also something that's more observable, right? But it comes from your attitude. What you're saying, in other words, there's a sort of a sequence here that comes in. I mean, if I had to put a sequence here, I would say this is fundamental because you acquire that really early in life. You know, you develop your values through osmosis by watching your parents and those around you, etc. You know, this comes second and this comes third. Now, I'm a little reluctant to put a sequencing thing on it because I think they're just sort of intermeshed. But I think if I had to, I would agree with you.
Well, you can put forth a great effort without having a great attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not subsequent.
They're not. And how do you find, if I have a bad attitude as a sports player and I put out great effort, how would you evaluate my attitude? I put out a lot of effort in doing a great job. That's the best I can do.
Check the results first, I guess, you know.
Okay. So anyway, I think we could go on about this and the different words, but I think the question is a good one, and I think we need to view them in a more integrated way. Okay. Any final comments on yesterday and Cameron? Okay, so let's spend just a few minutes on your key takeaways from the innovation session with Dave. What did you get out of that? What were your big takeaways there?
Like small steps.
Small steps. What else?
Constraints is a gift.
Sorry?
Constraints are a gift. Like, what he was saying is that if I gave you 40 minutes, you would use the same work. If I give you 2 minutes, you're going to do it in 2 minutes. So that's a gift. Sometimes. Please.
Constrained time. That's why, by the way, we do things when we have deadlines. You know, it doesn't matter how much advance notice we have of our deadlines. I don't know about you, but I'm one who starts acting as I really get close to the deadline, because I have to. My back's against the wall, you know. So we're very deadline oriented, and that's why constraining the time really matters. Great leaders, by the way, change agents, this is one of the techniques they use. They break it up into these small steps, and they have very aggressive deadlines.
I think the power of really listening to the feedback and that's something I feel like I really use in my teams is, when we go in for reviews, to kind of hold back their willing, their wish to just keep, responding to all the questions, and just kind of hold back and listen and let them know we're going to respond to everything, but just listen and really observe.
And that's why listening is a real art. I think the other day, we were talking about it. You when you watch the Steve Jobs video, remember you said, was he really actively listening, or was he just sort of, it was escaping him and he was going back to where he was? And listening is hard when you're in a fast-moving, compressed environment, right? Because you're thinking about your next move, you're thinking about what's just happened, so it's just very easy to be distracted. Any other thoughts on Dave's session? Yeah.
I felt like Ant's mind, you were saying the cliche of thinking outside the box, because sometimes you say that you don't know. But forcing people to take two separate concepts and trying to associate, like also dancing with solving products or the house. I mean, it was quite clever how everyone found a way to associate those two. And I think that's part of the innovation, just going after different angles and perspectives. And that's what really got out of us really needed.
Yeah, and I would take your comment and put it into two lessons. One is forcing helps. If you just ask people to do it of their own free will, we're still in our comfort zone. You need to put me outside of it. That's why learning only happens when you're in the stretch zone, right? So the first lesson is forcing is very important if you want your team to think out of the box. The second one is I put here, connect the disconnects. Give people two random objects and say, what's the relationship between them? And your first reaction is nothing. But as human beings, we are really creative. Tomorrow, with our guests Jim Illick and Bill Redman from Bechtel, they're going to spend a little time and talk about how the brain operates and how we actually process things. And in order to be really creative, you've got to go into your cognitive part of your brain and not in the STEM part of your brain, which is where we are when we're dealing with routine things. So we have much more power up here than we realize, but we actually underutilize it because we're always running. And when you're running and you're not forced to do it, you won't do it. It's easy not to do it. Okay, so this session was really important for us because I think a lot of the time people want to be perfect. And remember I called it baby steps on Monday? So what Dave was talking about is really taking the concept of baby steps and sort of putting a framework around it. You know, the importance of deadlines, the importance of feedback, forcing. I think you got some very important key takeaways yourselves. So that's why I wanted to have a chance for us to do a quick debrief this afternoon while the ideas are fresh. Okay, let's switch gears, move on to our stakeholder management piece. I'm going to pose you a problem, and then I want to see how you deal with it. This is a live issue, and it's actually happened to one of my former students, and I'll tell you afterwards what happened. But as a little warm-up exercise, I'd like you to think about the problem. Assume you're a project leader in a mid-sized, in this case, software company. You are spearheading the development of a new product with a team of technical professionals. They are very experienced, they're high achievers, they're very important to the success of your project. As you're getting close to a key deadline, you have to face 3 problems all at the same time. Number 1, a key member of your team has threatened to quit. Apparently, because of technical disagreements with a couple of other people. Number 2, senior management is getting really nervous because the next board meeting is coming up, and surprise, surprise, you think you're going to be late with this product launch. Number 3, a new vice president of marketing has just joined your company and has got huge concerns about this project and this product. He thinks it's actually the wrong thing to do. What's your strategy for dealing with these 3 sets of stakeholders? Your team members threaten to quit. The CEO and top team is getting very nervous because they're hearing rumblings that things are going to be delayed and things aren't working out as well as they could be. And a new senior executive has joined and says, hey, look, we shouldn't even be doing this. What are you going to do? Take 5 minutes. Reflect on it quickly, talk about it, tell me what your thoughts are, and then I'll tell you what happened.
Well, seems like
We don't do any covert stuff.
no covert actions.